Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the CIES Talks, a podcast series in which we dive into the fascinating world of sports management, education, and more, featuring insights from top experts in the industry. This podcast is brought to you by CIES, the International Center for Sports Studies, an independent study center located here in Neuchâtel, Switzerland, which provides cutting-edge research and world-class education to the world of sports. Among other things, CIES organizes Europe's leading sports management postgraduate program, the FIFA Master, which I am a proud alumnus of. And by the way, FIFA Master was just appointed for the 13th time in a row the top program in Europe by Sports Business Magazine. So kudos. For more information, you can check out CIES.ch. There's a link on the description. By the way, my name is João Frigerio. As I mentioned, I am a FIFA Master alumnus. Actually, I've been an alumnus of the program for just about 20 years since I graduated back in 2005. And today, I will have the pleasure to talk to another alumna of the program, Áine Power, who's also the Executive Director for Sport and Games at the International Equestrian Federation, the FEI. So instead of me giving more information about her, I will ask Áine to do that, explain to us more about her own career. So without further ado, let me invite Áine to join me right now. Here she is. Hi, Áine. Thanks for making it. Thanks for joining us at this podcast.
No, it's a pleasure to be here and really nice to see you again.
Welcome to the CIES Talks. So, Áine, as I said, just to give a very, very brief explanation of what you are at the moment, your current position. But why don't we start with you giving us a brief sort of summary of your career, maybe telling us how did you first got into sport, and more specific on sports law, because forgot to mention you're a lawyer by trade too, right?
Yeah, that's right. Well, first of all, I think like many people who do the FIFA Master who work in sport, I'm a total sports fanatic. I love and always have loved nearly every kind of sport. So grew up watching every kind of sport. Academically, decided to go down the legal route. It was always an area I was interested in. At the time, all the sport that I was watching was very much in parallel to my legal studies, my academic studies. I remember when I was in university at the University of Limerick in Ireland doing my undergrad. In one of the years, we had a couple of sports law modules, and up until that point, I probably wasn't aware that sports law was a potential career, that there was this whole area of academia based on sports law. So that always stuck with me. At the time, I would say in Ireland, it probably wasn't so developed in sports law. It's a country where there aren't very many professional leagues. Just rugby would probably be the only full-time professional league, a little bit of soccer or football, but the main games in Ireland are amateur games. So there's not really a whole big sports law industry in Ireland, at least not at the time. So I just continued on my path and went down the legal studies route, trained and qualified as a lawyer. But I think somewhere stuck in the back of my head was always this, maybe one day I can come back to it, maybe I can find a way back into it. So it was there from the very beginning, but it took a while, I would say, to actually make that step and make that transition into sports law.
Yeah, and how did it go about then? I forgot to mention, but you already did, and people probably could notice by the accent as well. You're Irish, and So then, how was that transition and actually going into sport?
Yeah, small correction. As of 3 weeks ago, I'm now Irish and Swiss. So I got my Swiss nationality. So during the Masters, I was always jealous of the people who had multiple passports. So now I'm one of them. So it's important to note. But yeah, I grew up, I was born and raised in Ireland. So yeah, to get into sports law. So I was working in a big corporate law firm in Dublin doing something completely unrelated to sport. I was working in aircraft financing, buying, selling, leasing, big aircraft. So absolutely a total world away, but always had that little international dimension to it, which I loved. And, I was about to turn 30. So sometimes when we have these big birthdays, we have these little moments of reflection. Where am I going? What am I doing? What's next? And as I said, that desire to work in sport was always in the back of my head. And literally, I think one day I just started to Google sports masters. I didn't have a lot of connections in sport other than like teammates from playing sport, but not professionally. And I started to Google different ways that I might find my way into this, and then just came across the FIFA Master actually and started looking into that. So I thought, this looks like an amazing course. How would I go about applying? And it kind of went from there, and was lucky enough to be accepted back around 2009, I think. Early 2010, I got the nod that I was accepted, and then it all started from there.
So you joined the program in 2010 and graduated in 11 then?
Yeah, I'm the 11th edition.
The 11th edition.
So, a little while ago now.
That's great. Before we talk more about the FIFA Master, I mentioned that you just stepped into this new executive role at the FEI. What's the part of the job that you're most excited about right now, since you're just starting fresh at a new position? Maybe explain a bit of what the role is and what excites you about it.
Yeah, so since the 1st of August, so just about 6 or 7 weeks ago, I stepped into this role as Executive Director of Sporting Games at the FEI. So it's a step out of the pure legal world and into a much more sport-focused world. So effectively, over the past year, the FEI underwent a restructure, and this new role was created with the idea of really making sure that our sports are aligned, that we're all moving in the same direction, and really merging the functions of the sport and the Olympic Games under one big umbrella department, which in my new role I head up. So it's also linked a bit to the FEI strategy. Our new strategy, which was just published in the past 6 months, came up with the idea, and which I totally support, that sport should be at the center of the FEI of what we do here. We're first and foremost, we're a sports governing body, and we must never lose sight of that. So I think by having an executive director for sport and games, it really reinforces the fact that our mission, our raison d'etre, is sport, and all the other functions that we do here are to promote and develop and position sport at the heart of the FEI. So it's a really exciting time to take on this role, I think, because it's new. This role hasn't really existed before. So it's an opportunity to shape it, to really help the development of equestrian sport, I hope, and make some positive change. And I think I have the advantage because I was working in the FEI for just over 11 years before I took on that role and in the legal capacity. And one of the things when you're in legal, you touch all the areas of the business, let's say, of the federation. So all those learnings that I had with my legal hat, I've been able to take on and into this role. So hopefully I have the building blocks for success.
Yeah, so you mentioned you've been there for about 11 years, always in legal roles. So how was it for you then to take that decision? Obviously, it's definitely a progression in your career, but kind of saying, okay, bye-bye legal matters. And I'm sure that you're going to deal with that a lot still, but because it touches everything. But now actually moving away from your, say, law or legal career into this next step. How was that decision process? What actually attracted, made you take that decision?
Yeah, no, it's a good question, and I think the whole move was bittersweet because I loved working in legal. It was my training, my education, everything what was in that direction, and it was my comfort zone. I felt I could do it was a job I could do well. At the same time, I think even when I was in legal, I always had this interest in the other areas of the organization, what they were doing, and never really just purely delivered core legal services, was involved in a lot of things like communication, bidding, the commercial side of things. So when the opportunity came up, when I saw the role, I was like, actually, I think this might be a good fit. I think I will throw my hat in the ring and hope to be considered for the position. So I think having a legal training is, a lot of people qualify as lawyers and they never practice as lawyers, but I think you always have that training in the back of your head. Yeah. It's a thought process. It's a way of addressing things. At the same time, now in my new role, I'm conscious that I am no longer the legal representative of the FEI. I'm not the one to go to for legal advice. So it probably takes a little bit of self-discipline to say that if something comes up, maybe I think I know the answer from a legal perspective, but it's important that that's addressed now by the people who are doing the legal role, and that I am more associated and focused with the pure sports matters.
Cool. If you were to point to one or two, say, personal traits, skills, maybe, say personal traits that helped you get here where you are, what would they be?
I think by default, I'm quite naturally a curious person. So I'm the kind of person, if I'm reading an article in a newspaper about a topic that I'm interested in or semi-interested in, and if there's a hyperlink to something that is linked to that, I'm going to be the person that clicks on the hyperlink and does a little bit of a deep dive. Or even, for example, if I'm watching a sport on TV that I like, but I'm not an expert on, I see something, I wonder why that's happening, I'm going to Google it, I'm going to find out, I want to understand the background. So I think that personally has been helpful to me in my career, because it meant that I never pigeonholed myself. My curiosity naturally led me to have conversations with people outside my core sphere of responsibility, to get involved in projects that were not necessarily strictly legal, that had maybe a little legal flavor. And ultimately, by being curious, I think I was able to build up my skill set a bit and find out about areas of the organization, of federation life, of the politics, because politics is a part of sport, whether we like it or not. And ultimately, I think it makes you a more rounded professional.
Yeah. Well, totally agree. I'm a bit curious myself as well. But if we could go and talk a little bit about the FIFA Master that just celebrated 25 years. We had a great celebration in Zurich a few weeks ago at the FIFA headquarters. Many alumni got together there. So you mentioned en passant, how you kind of heard about the program. You just did some search online, and that's how you said you didn't have that so many connections. You applied. Tell us then a bit about first your experience there. You know, the year that you had the FIFA Master. Maybe not everybody knows that. That's split in three parts, right? You start in England, then you go to Italy, and then Switzerland. You know, maybe what was the thing that impacted you the most during the program? Tell us a bit about your experience back then.
Yeah, for me, it was just an overwhelmingly positive experience. And I sometimes I look back now and God, I said, like, you know, I left Ireland. I literally packed up my car, because the first leg was in Leicester in the UK. So I took the ferry from Ireland, put my belongings in my car, and it was really just a step into the unknown. I read the brochures, and I really didn't know what to expect. I didn't know anybody else on the course. Okay, there was two other Irish guys on the course with me that year. We'd met up in Dublin one night for a drink. We happened to all be around at the same time, so that was nice. But apart from that, I really didn't know what I was getting myself in for, except that I had a feeling I was going to enjoy it. But I think the best thing about it was just the mix of people. And it's a little bit like, you know, that TV show Big Brother, where you throw a group of random people into a room, and it could work, it could not work. There's different dynamics. Our year, we just honestly had a very good dynamic in the class. It was just a great learning experience. I think one of the big takeaways for me was not necessarily on the academic side or even on the network side. It was learning to work with people from different cultures and backgrounds. And maybe we go in with a small bit of arrogance, thinking, oh, I did it this way, I've been to this school, I've done well, it's all easy. And then, you know, but we've only probably ever worked with people who are like us and haven't been exposed to much diversity, maybe, let's say. So when you go into an international classroom like that, it's humbling, and you see people think in a different way, and maybe they think on certain topics in a way that's better than how you think, or they approach things in a better way. Or maybe there's some little frictions when you have to do, you know, those projects that they love to assign us during the master, and you're assigned a random group and you're working with people that maybe you wouldn't naturally have gravitated to at the beginning. And maybe at the start of the project, you're thinking, how am I ever going to deliver a project with so-and-so? And by the end of it, you're the best of friends. And so that's been really good, I think, in terms of, especially when you work in international sport and we deal with all our national federations around the world, you need to take people how they are. You need to be open-minded. First impressions are often wrong. And that's one of the big ways that I learned during the Masters. I would say it's like a life lesson, not just a sports lesson, but it's been really positive for me, I would say.
Yeah, and how has that experience then helped you since your graduation? I think it's nice to point out, because people sometimes get confused because they see the name FIFA Master and many think that's football focused only. Obviously, there is a lot of football because there is a lot of football in sports, but there's a lot of many other sports out there as well. You are since then, I think, been working at the Equestrian Federation. I'm not sure if you went somewhere else before, or did you go?
Yeah, I did about 2.5 years in the International Boxing Association directly after the Masters. Yeah, and then from there I moved into equestrian.
Yes, exactly. As I was talking, I thought of that. That's you think you passed somewhere else before you joined the Equestrian Federation, which wasn't football anyway. Oh, by the way, I tell everybody that one of my favorite classes, the one that I really hold dear to me, was about the Irish sports. I thought it was amazing. The culture, having 80,000 people going to finals, and all sort of amateur. And hurley, that's
thank you for saying that, because that's my sport. That's the sport I grew up playing. It's still
really
my number one sport in the world. After being to Olympic Games and everything, I'm still very loyal. I still think there's no sport like hurling or camogie, which is the female version of it. So yeah, but thank you for mentioning that.
So you're officially mad, because that's a man's sport. I recommend everybody to have a look at it, and actually was one of the great things about the course. But as I was saying, so how then that experience, or actually doing the FIFA Master, that impacted in your career sort of after, in your professional life, would you say?
Obviously, one of the big things you take apart from all the life lessons, like I touched on a bit, is the value of the alumni network, I would say, and the people that you get to know, not just from your class, but then once you graduate, you're an alumni for life. And it's amazing. I've been to so many different conferences, not just sports law conferences, but big international sports conferences. And sometimes, you're walking in and you think you might not know anybody there. And usually within about 15 minutes, you're going to see that there's somebody who did the FIFA Master in the room. So it's always nice to have that as an ally. It's many times I have picked up the phone to somebody if we have an issue or a challenge here that we want the perspective of another federation. And people will say, does anybody know someone in Federation X? And usually through your FMA alumni contact book, you will. And people are always willing to pick up the phone and help out and share, and vice versa as well. So it's just that kind of direct line to people. So that's really beneficial and enjoyable as well. It's a great way to stay in touch with people, I would say.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite part of the program in England, Italy, Switzerland, or a particular class or trip that's stuck with you?
I think, Leicester, the first module is always special because it's so new and it's so exciting, and you're forming these. Exactly, everybody lives together and you're forming these bonds with people. And I remember you're going on trips to Wimbledon, and it's like, this is what I would be doing in my spare time, and actually this is a formal part of the course. This is fantastic. So yeah, I think Leicester is really special. I think I love just the course content in Leicester when we had David Goldblatt, the author of The Ball is Round, came to speak to us, and just, I remember that class. I always remember thinking sport is, it's more than people just chasing a ball on the field or trying to how they run very fast. I always felt myself, especially with my background in the Irish sport, it's so much part of culture. It's part of our history. It's part of our identity. And then he came in and he spoke so passionately about the internationalization of football, how the impact of football had on the world. I was like, yeah, exactly. This is what I felt for so long. So I think I really connected with that lecture. I still think back to it, his enthusiasm, and that was a special time and a special module, I think.
Yeah. Well, I didn't have that class in particular, but year after year, I hear a lot of people saying very good things about that one in particular. We were talking just before that about the power of this the alumni network, right? Which is definitely regarded as one of the strongest out there, if not the strongest in sports, really. And I think I'd like to stress that it's not only things that are they're not valuable just because of people that are sitting at the board, at the committee, that come and organize meetings here or there, but also the alumni themselves are quite proactive and get in touch with us and put things together. So very recently, I think you and Sarah Krumbach and other few ladies from the program put a special program focused in women's leadership. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? Because it was super well received. It was during the Euros, right? The UEFA
exactly,
Euros.
Yeah. So I give a lot of all in fact the credit of this to Sarah Kumbach, who is a good friend of mine, a great alumni from the edition just before mine, the 10th edition, and she's a big football fan. And we had the women's Euros taking place in Switzerland this year, and there was a lot of alumni living in Switzerland. And she quite rightly felt that it was the perfect opportunity to do something that's a little bit more focused, not necessarily just on women's sport, but on women working in sport, women like us, fellow alumni of the FIFA Master. So she called up a few of us, got us together, said, hey, would you be interested in trying to put together a kind of a workshop, seminar, something like that? And over the course of a couple of Zoom calls, that all came together. And actually, we're lucky enough to be able to use the facilities here at the FEI to host that meeting just the Friday before the Euros final this summer. So we had great attendance from alumni from across many editions. So it was great to have. We had also had some recent graduates who just graduated a couple of years ago. So we really had all the generations of female alumni there, and it was quite, it was structured in a way that, we can just discuss different topics, but then we had little breakout sessions on what we as alumni, what difference we could make, what we could do to pay it forward to other women working in sports. It was really constructive. I think the feedback has been quite good. It's been very kind of empowering for people. Some people use it as an opportunity to reconnect with the master. So it really shows the power of that master, that we all have this little connection, and when we come together, we can really use it to deliver some powerful messages, I think. So it was great. And again, all credit to Sarah.
Definitely. Yeah. Thank you, Sarah. Kudos to you. And also, thank you for helping out and providing the venue, at least part of the venue, because I know that there was a few sort of different meetings there. And yeah, I think this is a nice example of how this network works. The FIFA Master will be opening its applications a period now at the start of October. So now it's very likely that whoever is watching this, it is already open. If not, we'll be opening right at the start of the month in October. So for people thinking about doing the Masters now, sort of applying now to join next year, what would be the main piece of advice for someone to make the most out of it? And I also want to focus a little. We want to get some more women applying and joining the Masters. There were a few years where it was almost like 50-50, or actually 50-50 splits, but in recent years that dropped a little, and we definitely would like to have more women applying, or the program would like to have more women applying. So what advice would you give to someone that plans to join the Master, how to make the most out of it? And if you want to say something specifically to women as well.
Yeah. As a general advice, it's easy to get it to do the masters, and maybe some people get a little bit stressed about the academic side of it, or people start to get stressed about, am I making enough connections? Am I building my network enough? What am I going to do after this? And my advice would be, it's 10 months of your life. It's a fantastic 10 months of your life. It goes really fast. So don't get too caught up in looking forward in the pressure of it. There's an expression that I like very much, is be where your feet are. Just take it day by day, enjoy the experiences that you're getting day by day. And I think you'll be surprised how many things happen organically. It's, if you put pressure on yourself and think this has to lead to my dream job day one after the masters, I think you'll probably be missing out on all the amazing things that are happening to you every day in the classroom, every site visit, every social event, every night at the bar. Not that we go to the bar every night, but every night that you do go to the bar. I don't want to build up on any Irish stereotypes here, but yeah, so just take it as it comes. And genuinely, it sounds like a cliche, but do enjoy it. It passes really fast, and you'll be in a job most likely and hopefully in sport for the rest of your life. And this opportunity to be in a classroom learning from others, it's unique, and you may never have that opportunity again. So don't let it pass you by with looking too far forward. That's my main advice. For the ladies out there, I just say, why not do it if you have the interest? And there's lots of women out there who are interested in sport. Go for it. I mean, for me, I was in one of the classes, as I said, the 11th edition. We're 4 girls and 24 guys, so we're very much in the minority. Personally, for us, that wasn't an issue. We had a fantastic relationship between us, and we never felt sidelined or anything like that. So ideally, and I agree with you, it would be great to have a 50-50 situation. But if you're a potential applicant and you're worried about, are there going to be other girls or enough girls or women in the class, I would say don't let that be an impediment in any way. In principle, the people who do the masters tend to be very nice, open, welcoming people, regardless of who they are, where they come from, what their gender is. So it's really not the most important factor to keep in mind. And then once you're in, you have a fantastic alumni of men and women who are more than happy to help you out.
Cool. Thank you. We will add once the link is open for people to apply. We will add the link at the bottom of this video as well, so people will be easily guided there. Sticking a bit with this topic, I mean, for many years, since I think the beginning of sports, was always seen as a men's thing, especially at the top level, managing, and that's probably a trend that is changing at the moment, right? You have a GS there at the FEI, Sabrina, who's been leading the federation there in a top position for some years now. We have Kirsty Coventry at the top of the IOC. But how has your experience been as a woman working your way into a leadership role in sport?
Yeah. So I as I touched on briefly, I've kind of worked in 2 quite different sports, boxing and equestrian. And even though, women were actually, when I was in London 2012, I was working at boxing at the time when women were admitted to the Olympic competitions for the first time. So I did see the progression of women's sport, but at the same time, the culture was a more male-dominated environment, and probably did feel also a factor. I was more junior in my career at the time, so I probably did feel that imbalance more, I would say, at the time than I feel it now. At the same time, I didn't feel that it held me back massively. I think ultimately, if you do your job well, if you're open, people are going to support you and it's going to help your career. I didn't have the feeling that it was a block. I didn't feel that I wasn't supported by my male colleagues around me, but it's true. Sometimes you walk into a meeting room and maybe you're the only woman in the meeting room, and there's not a lot that you can do about that. You just still try to go about and do your job. Obviously, here at the FEI, we're in a sport, first of all, where men and women compete on a completely level playing field. They compete against each other. We have podiums that's woman on top, man in silver, woman bronze, all mixed up, mixed teams. But, not even like a special mixed competition at the Olympic Games. Teams are just made up of men and women. They just pick the best athletes, and oftentimes the women are amongst the best athletes. So that's probably easier. You mentioned Sabrina Ibanez, our Secretary General for the past 11 or going on 12 years. Of course, it makes a difference when you see a lady and a strong leader like Sabrina in a leadership position, and her values, her culture is very much about empowering women, making sure that her staff has a good gender balance. So that's important. I would say in your career, these things are important, is especially you want to look at the culture of the organization that you want to work for. Maybe early in your career, you're less selective about that because you just want to get in the door. But as you want to progress and build your career, and you want to look at what are the values, what's the culture of the organization, and going into, perhaps you might hear things of this organization is quite skewed in one direction, and maybe you hear that they're not so supportive of this, or there's a huge imbalance. You might take that as a sign that maybe that's not the place for you. Not necessarily. Some other people can go in and make a difference. So yeah, for me, it's about culture, and you can have a good culture in a place where it's not fully 50-50. I think that it helps when there's at least some kind of a balance, because I do believe we all take better decisions when there's a diversity at the decision-making table. So, but regardless of what situation you find yourself in, if you are still even the only woman in the room, you still need to go do your job. You still need to deliver. Complaining about it in that specific moment won't make a difference. I think the onus is on us to try and make a difference in other ways once we get into those leadership positions, is to make sure that we're not alone there. Make sure that in a year's time, we're not the only woman in the room, that there's people coming up in the pipeline that we support through mentorship, through all these little activities, the little workshop that we organize, try to achieve change that way.
Yeah, well, that makes a lot of sense. You from where you are at the moment, well, you've been there for some years, since when you entered your role at boxing, and you've been climbing positions. Do you see that things are going in the right direction? That, I mean, we just mentioned a few women that are in very high positions in sports, and I'm sure that there are others. Do you think, more than going in the right direction, do you think it's at the right pace? Could be accelerated? If so, do you have any idea to make that happen?
Yeah.
How do you feel about it?
Yeah, and you mentioned the word accelerate. I would love to see it accelerated, because you see these statistics of how long it will take for pay equity, and it's like way into the late 2000s. So I mean, that's too slow for sure. So we have to be a bit impatient about it. I think it's important that we don't just let things happen organically. We have to push. We have to drive it forward a little bit. Myself, there are lots of different ways of doing that. We can talk about quotas. We can talk about mentorship systems, all of which have merit. On a small micro level, myself, I'm a fan of really measuring things. I think if you don't measure things, you're not going to be able to change things, because yes, anecdotal experiences, good and bad, are important, they're valuable, can be persuasive. But really, if you want to hold a mirror up to the people who have the power to change some things, you need to provide them with some facts. So from my perspective, it's like, if we're advertising for a position, I want to know how many applied, how many guys applied, how many girls applied. If we interview, I want to see what's a breakdown of that. Even something like in the FIFA Master, We can measure what's the breakdown of our lecturers, of the people, of the visiting speakers. Are we achieving equity in that? Because I believe we can all do better, and the importance on us is to do better. But really, unless you have a metric by which to measure yourself, it's easy to find little escape routes or to explain away why we're not doing better. So I think we can all do that at every level that we're operating in, teaching in, working in, etc. And by doing that, we put a little bit of pressure on ourselves. We give ourselves a little bit of acceleration that we're looking for.
Yeah. Good point. I imagine that you are asked for advice from people that want to start a career in sport frequently, I would say. Am I correct? Do you get?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. And do you keep track? Do you have an idea if it's more guys or girls or women or men asking you for advice?
My experience, it doesn't skew any particular way. I mean, LinkedIn is it's a blessing and a curse. Let's say it's a great way to get to know people, and at the same time, a lot of it now is weeding out people. But I do get contacted by people on LinkedIn from time to time. Of course, people who are looking to do the masters, people looking to break into sports law or into sport in general. I haven't seen a major gender bias breakdown of that. And even if I did, I think my advice is still pretty much the same, regardless of where they're coming from or what their gender is. In principle, my advice for anyone looking to break into it is keep an open mind. As I said before, you may have your dream job in mind before you actually break into sports law. I think I had my dream job in mind before I did it, and it's not at all what I'm doing right now. And I'm really happy that I'm not doing it. I can't tell you.
Okay. Maybe after some time.
Yeah, exactly. No, but I mean, I think we all think about the sport that we want to work in, and maybe people want to work, and you touched on it yourself. I just want to work in football. I only want to work. I want this, and there's a world of sport out there. And my advice is be really open-minded. The most important thing is to get your foot in the door, and once your foot is in the door, after that, it's musical chairs, and people move around, and you move around from sport to sport. And often, I'm very grateful for my experience in the Boxing Association, because it was a small federation, many challenges at the time, but I learned so much. And if I'd gone into a very specific role in a larger organization, I think I wouldn't have learned 10% of what I learned there. And I'm very grateful, and that opportunity happened to come around. I'd say be humble. Again, my own experience of boxing when it came around, it was initially a maternity leave cover, an internship contract. Salary-wise, it was a good bit below what I was earning back in my job in Dublin. I had to suck that up for a while, but it pays off in the end, because, again, I got my foot in the door. And I don't think I would have gotten the job here at the FEI if I hadn't had the experience like that before. So be humble. If you're new to an industry, yes, maybe you are going to have to start at the bottom, or at least a few rungs down from the industry you're in before you crossed over. But again, if you're good enough, you make the effort, you'll make up those rungs pretty quickly, I think.
Well, I think that's great advice. Great way to wrap this up as well. So, ladies and gentlemen, Áine Power, thank you so much, Áine, for taking the time to do this. I think it's super invaluable. Great advice throughout. And yeah, I just want to open the space for maybe some final words, remarks, any message that you want to leave before we finish this, and just to say thank you again for participating.
Thanks to you, Joe. I really enjoyed this trip down memory lane. It brought me back to a very, very happy time in my life, which was the FIFA Master. So I'm grateful. Yeah, my advice is anyone who's thinking of doing the Masters, anybody who wants to get into sports, just do it. And even if it doesn't work out with the FIFA Master, it's a competitive course. The application is high. Don't give up. There are other opportunities, and as I say, keep an open mind, and I don't think you'll regret it.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much. Stay there just until I wrap this up. I want to say a big thank you to everybody who's watched this until now. As I said, the applications for the 27th edition of the FIFA Master will open now in October. So it may be that it's already open when you're watching this. The link will be in the description of the video. If you want to know more about CIES, go to cies.ch. Thank you so much, Áine. My name is João Frigerio, and I look forward to seeing you here again very soon. Bye-bye, everybody.